Hey guys, today we are doing block 3 of month 1 for this block of the month from Pink Door Fabrics. I had stored all of these in bags for each block, so I'm just taking out all of the cut pieces and organizing them by color so that I know where each color lives and can lay out the block. Today we are doing the Cups and Saucers block. So on here, it'll tell me what the name is, and then I can go to this pattern book, look up the name and the page number of the pattern that we need, and then I can open it up to the directions. Some of them I need the directions, obviously, for something like the log cabin. I don't, I just need the picture, but this one was really helpful. So this one is a number of half square triangles stacked in certain ways, and it's quite fiddly, but does look really, really cool when it's done. So first thing I needed to do was to remind myself what the size of all of these blocks were to figure out which one is the center block, because that one was a unique size. And then these ones are also ones I have to cut in half because they're using the triangles instead of the squares. So I had to do that, just using a ruler and measuring corner to corner, give it a little slice, and you're good to go. I just stacked them so that I had them all together. This was kind of an interesting block. I'm not used to like having to cut more in between. And so it was really interesting to have to do this, and then we'll also have to cut more later for the half square triangles. Okay, so here is the block that we have to line things up on. So it tells you to fold it in both directions so you have the center line, which actually is very helpful when you're lining up the triangles. So I did that here and just gave it a little finger press so I have those markings. And then this is the first layer, so I had to cut this into multiple pieces actually. Instead of just the 2 triangles, I had to cut 4 triangles. I couldn't figure out how to do it when I had cut it in half, so I relined them up and just measured corner to corner again. I probably could have figured out how to do it with my ruler, but I didn't want to put that much brain power into it. So I just relined up and then cut again very carefully. So then these 4 triangles are going to be sewn to the pink triangle. So I use that center line to line up where the triangle needs to lay, because it is going to overlap the sides, and it has to line up correctly. So instead of using the sides, I am using that center point to make sure that when it's pressed open, it's correctly aligned. And then you just go ahead and sew these bad boys on, and you've got your first layer of the block. It was actually kind of fun. I did finger press them in between because you need to press out the first one you've sewed before you do the second one. So I'll just press it open here. But you see how the corners of the triangle are kind of sticking out like that? That's how triangles always go. They always overlap on the edges. And then, yeah, I just folded the triangles in half to get that center line on them as well, so you can line up the point, but also the center at the bottom. And that makes life a little bit easier on getting everything in the right spot. So yeah, in between each one, I just finger press it open because the next one, as you can see, is going to overlap a little bit. And sometimes my machine does weird things, so you might see me stopping for a minute. But again, I am backstitching at the beginning and at the end every time. This is just my thing. Sometimes it's annoying in this case where it kind of got a little scrunched, but it'll turn out fine at the end. Just another little finger press. And then again, folding those triangles to get that center line. Then I will line it up with that fold line we have on the main square. And sew it at 1/4 inch. Okay, so this is the last one. So I'll open her up and you'll see that is the square. So I did give it a little press after that just to get everything nice and flat. So now we're adding the next triangles. Same thing, I'm gonna fold them in half to get that center line. And then I'm gonna line up that center line with where these triangles intersect here to get it in the right spot. Because again, you're doing a triangle on a square, so you're gonna have those overlapping sides. So this is the best way to make sure that your triangles are in the right spot when you open her up. And again, I'm gonna just finger press in between because again, these triangles are going to overlap each other as we go around the sides of the square. Okay, here's my last triangle on the second layer. And look at that bad boy. Looks so good. So I gave that a little press, and then now here I am just trimming off these little triangle edges, because now we're going to be building a different layer after this. So I'm just trimming it straight on all these edges. Try not to cut off too much. Just because I want these straight, but I don't want to reduce the size of the block all that much. Just trimming off those little edges that aren't quite straight. Those middle seams are quite thick with the double layer, so it took me a couple passes on that one. But now I have to make the small half square triangles that are going to go around the edges. These are done 2 at a time. So if you've never done a half square triangle 2 at a time, what you do is you draw a line diagonally across one of the squares, and then you actually sew a 1/4 inch on either side of those lines, so that you get 2 half square triangles out of 1 pair of squares, which is really nice actually to get them 2 at a time. So what you're going to see me do here is draw that line corner to corner on each of these sets, so that I can then take them over to my sewing machine and sew those lines. I will be doing chain piecing for these, so I'll do all one side on one and then cut them apart and then do all the other side on the next pass. And then once they're all sewn, I will do a quick setting the seam press. So I don't fold anything, I just iron over that middle seam, those middle seams that I sewed. And this does 2 things. One, it does what's called setting your seam, so it kind of sets that seam nice and flat, but also then gets rid of this pen, because this is a heat erase pen, so just removes that mark. So now you can see I've already sewn one line on the side of that center line. that we drew. Now I'm going to sew the seam on the other side. So I'm just running along that line as the 1/4 inch mark so that it gives a 1/4 inch on either side. And I'll just, again, go through and chain piece all of these. And then once that's done, I'll do that press, and then I will actually cut them apart on this diagonal line that I drew. All right, now I am going to iron these half square triangles open. When I iron open, I try to make sure that I'm pressing my seam to the darker fabric side. This will hide the seam in the final block a lot better than if you press it to the lighter side. So you can kind of see my technique there. How I do it is I just hold the darker piece of fabric up, and then when I iron over on that seam, it pushes all of that seam fabric underneath that piece that I'm holding. So I just kind of lightly go over, make sure that seam is straight, and then iron it nice and flat. All right, so now I am just squaring up all of these half square triangles. So there were 2 sets of each color, which make 4 half square triangles, but I actually only need 3 for this project, so I'll trim 3 of them. I try to take like about a half of what I need to trim off on one side and then flip it and take half off the other, so I get 2 very straight edges, or I guess 4 very straight edges. So you'll see me flip this one around now and then measure it to the right size and do another trim, and that'll be a nice square trimmed half square triangle. I just took the other ones and set them aside. I'll probably trim those and then put it together with some of these other scraps to make like a little baggie or something. I really hate throwing away scraps at all. I actually save all of them, even these little tiny ones, in bags. The little ones can be used to stuff things like Christmas ornaments or other little stuffies that you might be making. They also are great for like stuffing a pet bed if you make like a cat bed or a dog bed. And then some of the bigger ones I like to keep for paper piecing projects. I skipped over trimming the rest of those because it's kind of boring, but now I am going to start to put together the rest of this block. So basically you just matching up these colors of the half square triangles with the colors of the corners of the center block in this cute little design here, and then there are these larger red rectangles in between them. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna lay out the entire block so I know what goes where, and then I will take it piece by piece and sew it together in a way where at the end I can just slap it all together. So I'll probably do the bottom row and top row onto this block, and then the side rows I will sew to themselves so that then I can tie it all together at the end. But I'll take the pieces a few at a time just to be more efficient after I've got it all laid out and start putting it together here like this. So starting mostly with these red rectangles and adding these half square triangles to the edges of them to make it the right size for the block, as well as putting together those sides. Again, starting and stopping on all my seams. You can see here if you look closely at my bobbin, I am playing bobbin chicken here. And actually I did complete all 5 blocks without rewinding my bobbin. So for anybody who has been wondering, I typically use an 80 weight thread called Deco Bob from Wonderfill. And part of the reason I use this thread is twofold. One is that it doesn't take up that much space in your seam, which is really nice. Helps all of your blocks lay really, really flat. But also because it's so thin, it lasts forever. So oftentimes I actually have to turn the low thread warning on my bobbin off on my machine because it'll turn on, but I actually have still quite a bit on my bobbin just because of how fine that thread is. So that's one of the things I love about it, because thread can be really expensive and it's nice to buy something that is going to last a really long time. Actually, I shocked myself one day when I actually ran through an entire bobbin of the Deco Bob thread, or an entire spool, excuse me. And I was a little bit proud of myself that I didn't lose it at some point and actually made it all the way through. But here you see I kind of got messed up on one of the seams on this block, so I'm just going over and trying to correct it and make it straight. Again, I think I mentioned this in my previous video, but I really needed to change my needle. However, I did not change my needle until after I was done with these blocks. So here I am laying it back out, the pieces I just sewed together, just to make sure, again, that I have everything where it's supposed to go. And then I can decide which ones I am going to take back over to my machine to sew together. So you'll see me just laying these on here in the spots where it needs to go. This helps me keep everything organized as I bring it over to my machine. And like I said before, I'm sewing these sides strips together, and then I will actually be putting the top and bottom onto this square block once I get those sewn together. So now we will continue on with the sewing, and I will let you just kind of watch. So we are getting ready to put on these last few pieces of this block and get it all finished up. As you can see, I am actually pinning here. I don't normally pin, but when I am trying to match seams, I usually do, just to try and make sure that everything is in the right spot when the block is done. So I will line these up and I will pin on them just to keep them in the right spot and make sure everything looks good in the end. And usually I will do it on a couple of seams. If there's more that I find important to match, then I will do more, but this was helpful for just like the reference on making sure everything was in the right spot. I do not sew over my pins. I would not ever recommend sewing over your pins. Please do not sew over your pins. This can actually really mess up your machine if your needle hits it. So I will sew right up to that pin and then I will take it out. And my machine sometimes has issues with the seams that are facing towards the presser foot. So sometimes I just use my seam ripper just to press those down so it glides over it instead of smushing it into the opposite direction. But yeah, this block was more fun than I thought it was going to be, and I actually think it turned out pretty good. You'll see at the end that the long rectangles sometimes got a little weird, but I actually did end up taking these blocks and putting them in the row like they were supposed to be for the final top. And once I sewed it together with the other ones, it looked perfect. So it just, I think, is because there's just long pieces that don't have any support between some more structured pieces on the block. But in the end, it looks really nice. And I like all the colors. I'm a big red person. I don't really like pink as much, but red is one of my favorite hues of the rainbow. So all of these red tones in these first few blocks are making me really, really happy. And again, with this last side piece, we will be pinning in a couple of spots where I find it important to match. And sew that baby up. Thanks so much for watching. I know this was a longer video. I didn't speed up anything. This is all done in real time. So please let me know if you prefer this longer form where I keep everything at a normal speed, or if you would prefer it a little shorter and I can speed some things up. The other thing I want to ask is just make sure you hit that subscribe button, because the more subscribers, the more videos that I'll make. And this is just for anybody who hasn't been following along, a block of the month project. So it will take 1 full year to complete. However, each month is multiple blocks, usually 5 to 6 of them. So there will be plenty of content coming in the next year for this particular project, but there will also be other projects that I will video. I do teach beginner quilters and beginner sewers classes. I have thought about doing some videos for those, but because I teach them at the community center, I don't want to make any promises on if people are going to be okay with me filming them. So if that's something you're interested in seeing or following along, or possibly for me to put a couple of videos online for people to follow along if you're interested in learning how to sew or how to quilt, please let me know in the comments and I can certainly work on that. But now we have that all sewn together. I'm just going to press those seams and then I am going to iron it open. Pressing the seams helps it lay flat, gets rid of any wrinkles in the seams, and then you can press it open nice and flat and it looks really nice. And the seam should lay nice and flat because you set those seams with your iron. And there we are. That's the cups and saucers. I actually really think it's cute. I don't typically like half square triangles. I get really annoyed with trimming them, but this one doesn't have too many. And because it doesn't have too many, I think it's a really nice block actually. And they picked good colors for it. So yeah, thanks for watching.